and we say to the world our fucking message that we're gonna take back our fucking lives in hand and make things happen. And here I say, let's go! Let's fucking go!
All right. What is up, everybody? I'm wanting to make a video where I'm going to dive back into the things I say here, because I say a lot of things. Believe it or not, I haven't watched that video myself, and I rewatched it, and I just wanted to provide a few informations because I'm saying a lot of things in there, and also to explain a little better what's going to be the project and how it's going to start, because because I'm saying a lot of things in that video, and there's all kind of stuff involved. The first thing I want to say is, this video is very emotional, and I'm crying a lot because, not because today I have issues and I'm unhappy and I have all kind of problem. It's because I have solved everything, every issues that I had, that I'm able to not only talk about it, but also let go of that whole image that I built for myself, where I was hiding all these things and where I was not accepting all these shadows and all this dark side that I could have had throughout my life. So I'm crying a lot because I'm having, in the space of a few minutes, the visualization, the thoughts, the realization of things that have happened to me in the past, like 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. There's a lot of things suddenly in the same moment that are happening in my head. And it's the release of a whole bunch of things. There are things that I'm talking that I've never talked to anybody in my life. It was a very special moment for me. These are not from sadness. I don't see this as I was like sad saying all these things. It's just more from a release point of view, types of things. So let's dive back in a few things that I want to
Because of the
So the first thing is the body dysmorphia. What happened is, and this was the biggest thing for me to actually acknowledge and talk about it, because it's one thing that absolutely nobody knew about. What happened is that about 20 years ago, when I was around like between 10 to 12 years old, I've had a few encounters of something that we could qualify as bullying about my weight, and this created something in my brain that took me a lot of time to accept and overcome. The thing you need to understand to set the ground is that me, when I was like about in that same period of time, like 11, 12 years old, and it's more of my inner child. I was very, very much of a dreamer, very sensitive, very artistic, very open, very fascinated with the world around, absolutely unequipped to face or fight against any kind of attack or violence toward me. I was creating my own world, was playing a lot with action figures, imagining scenario, drawing a lot, very curious to all types of different things. I've done a lot of different things being a kid, the art of the circus, like all type of stuff. Are very open, curious, sensitive, but very introvert to all that. Like, it's things that are really kept to myself naturally first, and really I couldn't comprehend what really, how to say, attacking or projecting hate or violence towards somebody else, because it's not something that would make sense in my brain. What happened is that at that period of my life, I was a little chubby. I was never obese or never really, really heavily overweighted, but just like slightly, maybe slightly overweighted, but just chubby. And the first thing that happened is that one day, and I remember exactly that scene, and I remember how I felt. Like it was like 20 years ago. I remember every second like it was yesterday. And the first thing that ever happened to me is an older guy at school. It was after a lunch break where I was still eating, I think it was bread. I was still eating bread. And that older person came to me and gave a kick into my hand to throw away the food that I had and that I was eating, and came to me, kicked my foot out of my hand, and said, "Robin, you're already fat enough. Stop eating. Don't you want to, like, do you want to be more fat than what you are? Like, you should stop eating this." And this was the first time, again, around like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was 11 years old. And this was the first time I encountered an attack toward myself, and I was absolutely unconscious of my weight, of how I would look at that time. I was unequipped to comprehend the situation. And a few things like this have happened, but the first time it happened, I remember to this day the discharge, the charge of electricity that went through my spine at the exact same moment I've had that interaction, and how this and here in that fucking space and time, it switched something in my brain. On the same, year or so or period, I would have also, medical visit where now it would be more adults, but like and the doctor, so like an adult, would tell me or tell my parents or my mom on that specific scene that I remember, Robin is too heavy. So that would be another moment where I've had like my external world telling me that I had a problem. That was like too fat or too heavy, even though in a total neutral point of view, I was never, yes, I was a little chubby, but I was never really, fat or whatever. But this doesn't really matter. What mattered is how I interpreted it and how an external factor attacked me while I was unequipped to comprehend and realize. And a few different things in the same kind made me aware or made me react in a way that I created a defense mechanism in my brain that I had to hide myself. And this was unconscious at first, and I started to be conscious about this when I was about 14, 15 years old. And yes, that thing, I not only never told it to anybody, not a single soul on this planet, but it took me almost my entire life up to this point to face it, acknowledge it, talk about it, and engage into finding solution and into real work to free myself from that thing. And it was just like some kind of like bullying or some kind of, the world told me as I was young and unequipped to face that I had a problem. So I need to hide myself because it's the only thing that I could imagine that I would do, that I could do, or it was in my capacity of doing. But again, initially it was very unconscious. But it's like any childhood trauma, it's unconscious. So what else about that? So yeah, and then, through up until, yeah, 30 years old, this is where I started to do shadow work about that specifically. And then more recently, and I'm talking about in this video as well, I've done a hypnotherapy session. It wasn't absolutely not linked to my dysmorphia. It was for something completely different, but it made me realize so many things, and it made me realize that I was still hiding myself. And the thing is this, I was perfectly conscious about this since a long time. Like I said, I started to be conscious about this when I was about 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. It's always been uncomfortable, and no matter how I would look throughout the years, 15 years old, 18 years old, 20, 25, 27, 28, until 30, no matter how I would look, it doesn't matter. It did not matter. I would never feel comfortable being shirtless in a public space. Never, ever, no matter how I would look. And it's something that I couldn't accept, or I've always been ashamed of, because of that defense mechanism that I put in my head when I was fucking 10, 11 years old, that I had to hide myself, and me not realizing it, not accepting it, not facing the truth, the reality of what I put myself into, the reality of the reaction that I've had from that action, got me stuck into this thing. So it's something that, again, in that project, I'll probably talk and give other insight about it, and for other people too, because it can come from different places, right? Like it's not always like my story is unique in a way, but there's other people that's going to have body dysmorphia because of something else. It can come from different things, but for me, it was mainly realizing this first, the acknowledgement, is that a word that exists? Maybe. To acknowledging where it comes from, what is the root of the problem. Acknowledging that you're just having a reaction, an unconscious reaction to an external factor, is the foundation of getting better, accepting it, facing the reality, and then understanding that it's all in your mind. It's not, it's not what we think it is. People don't think about us like we think they do. It's really the first step for me, was that to understand that it doesn't matter, that people are not nearly as close as thinking what you think they think, if that makes sense. Moving on to the next thing.
At that fucking point.
So here's the thing. I'm talking about that I've had a nicotine addiction for about 10 years. So in my early 20s, 19, 20, starting to smoke. What you need to understand also, it's in France, it's way more common. Probably not today, maybe still, way more common than it is here in Canada. It's very rare that I see people smoking cigarettes here. Know that it's very common, not that it's an excuse or whatever, but it's just like I let myself fall into the trap. What mainly happened is that the first career that I had, literally every single soul that I was surrounding me was smoking cigarettes, right? So that was my work environment. So as a weak person, I fell into the trap of wanting to recreate, for myself, or to be accepted, to be, acknowledged, and to feel good, I guess, to feel part of the thing I was, by doing what everybody else was doing, aka smoking. Um, and so I started like this, because of wanting to be like others in my work environment. And then for a few years, I smoked like a regular smoker, like nothing too crazy, but nothing too low. It was like pretty regular smoker. And a few years after, when I first stopped, was, I don't know, probably after like 3 years, something like that. Fun fact is when I started CrossFit, so about like when I was 20 years or something like this, stopped everything, stopped smoking from a day to another, and it was great. But then,
even more complaining about oh.
but then, this is where I started to have what I called, I think the name in French was hyperphagia, and which in English is mainly called binge eating disorder. This appeared when I was about 23, and when just after I stopped smoking. So I think there's several things and that I'm going to talk about, and it was linked to the dysmorphia, but with no doubt. But I think my brain was as well trying to find alternatives to the amount of dopamine that I was getting, that I was blasting myself into, and then suddenly not having it. This definitely left the room for other things to happen. This was the main second thing that, again, never told anybody. Mainly because I was ashamed. It's a really weird thing. So the way it happened is like it happened progressively, but basically from 23 years old to like pretty much 27, 28, because it came back when I first arrived in Canada. So like for about 5 years, I've had like ups and downs, but sometimes they're very violent, sometimes a little less. But it's is the main reason why in my 20s, like I've had like such changes of weight, because there's moment where I would have like a lot of crisis, moment would have a little less. It's a very strange thing because it's not an eating addiction. Because addicted to dopamine, and when I'm saying and I loved it, it's because it makes you feel great when you do it, right? When you consume nicotine, it just made me feel good, and very good. When you have a binge eating disorder, and you literally feel it coming, and you literally go through a crisis where you're going to eat everything you can until you feel like you're going to fucking explode, there's nothing enjoyable about that, even when you eat the things. This is why it's really fucked up, because it's not really something like, oh, you enjoy food and you're a foodie, because I am a foodie, but it's nothing like having some type of food that you enjoy. It's literally an urge that creeps on you and that you feel it coming. It's not like out of nowhere, boom. It's like you feel it coming. You feel it coming, and it's mostly at night, because you need to hide yourself when you do this. You can't do this in front of others. So it's very vicious. It's something that like jump on you, and then oh shit, you feel it coming. You're like, okay, that's gonna happen, and you see it, and then it happens, and there's nothing enjoyable in the process. There's nothing good. It's actually quite miserable. It's quite terrible, but it gets worse, because afterward you're confused. you feel like shit because you just ate, you know, an astronomical amount of calories in food. I couldn't even tell you, but it's possible. It was like likely that I would eat like 4, 5, 6,000 calories at the end of the day. Sometimes even more than that. It's absolutely unreal what you could do for no reason, for no real reason, and it's not even. Oh, I love that food, or it's really not that thing of like enjoying the eating. It's an urge that you can't control, and you just eat until you can't anymore, and you go to bed, basically. And then it's a whole vicious spiral, because when this happens, the day after, you feel even more bad, and you're like, fuck, well, today I can't eat because I've basically just ate the calories, the amount of calories that I should have ate in like two days or 3 days. So like today, I'm not gonna eat, because that's probably the smartest thing to do, right? And then you start having that weird relationship with food, and you start restricting yourself, and you start like really being anxious about things and try to controlling, because you know that it's gonna happen, and you know that you're gonna have like something that's gonna creep on you in a fucked up thing one day or the other, and you have to compensate for this to keep some sort of sanity. And so that type of things, you know, there's up and down. To me, the problem is like I've never, it never reached a point where I was like, okay, my life is in danger. But there's definitely some eating disorder where your life is actually in danger. To me, what it would just do, because I wasn't, you know, there's different type of people that are gonna make themselves puke after eating. It's something that I've never done. So I wasn't at that point. It was just like, to me, it translated just, but like, I was feeling bad, a lot of shame, and just like ups and down in my weight, or very often being fatter than I would like normally be because of this, because I would eat so much more calories. And the problem is that I think it appeared with my brain chemistry that got changed, but it definitely appeared more and more associated with the dysmorphia, because then this is where it would get fucked up, because the thing is like then my dysmorphia would get even worse if it would be there no matter, regardless of how I would look. But if I would be more fat, it would be even more. And so I would get even more insecure and even more like uncomfortable. And so you have these things that are mixing up, and then the more you feel uncomfortable with yourself and ashamed about yourself, the more you get depressed, and you don't want to show yourself, and you want to avoid people, and you want to avoid a lot of things. And so the more you feel like shit, and so the more your brain is like, oh, I want something that's going to make me feel good for a second, and then that can be food. And then it's not hard to understand that all these things can then put you in the downward dark spiral, and it can be complicated. For me, for some reason, I've always tried to tell myself that it would disappear somehow, and that I could probably die with it, or like die without saying it to anybody. And that I would like get out of it myself, which I kind of did. There's different things, but like this kind of, yeah, was around for like about 5 years, from like 23 years old. And then funny enough, everything kind of like calmed down before I left to come in Canada. And then after a couple months here, not even a couple months, yeah, after a couple months, everything came back into my face at a very at a very high strength. And this was really confusing, but the best thing, what saved me is that I was alone to deal with it, and it made me realize a lot of things. It first made me realize that wherever I would be, wherever the fuck I am, I'll stay. My demons will follow me. That was the first thing. It's not an environment thing. So it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter. The external world does not matter. Everything was within. Now, we're being alone for about 9 months before one of my friends come here live with me. For 9 months, I spent most of my nights and weekend by myself. In this new country, the new culture, new language, new everything, and why it was a blessing, because I was able to have a lot of time and clarity, not clarity, but like room to think. Room to think, room to have conversation with myself, to face things, to, try to find solution, to understand, to think about a lot of things. And I am very much somebody that has like a insanely big internal dialogue, and so like it was when in that video at some point I know I say, and in there's a lot going on. What I mean by that is that, yeah, I am, let's put it this way, I have an awareness that is beyond common, and you'll understand why when I'm gonna start to put out videos about some stuff. And there's absolutely no ego associated with that. It's just like I was given the opportunity to think this way, but this is irrelevant for now. What I mean is that by being alone, that gave me the opportunity to, with a minimum of external interaction, being able to really internally do a lot of work. Now, these are things that we'll talk with different people and in different episodes and stuff on how, and giving tools on how to get away from some things. There's plenty of things with the nicotine addiction. One of the big things that helped me was understanding, neuroscience. By example, I discovered neuroscience in 2017. Before that, I thought that human behavior was kind of like magic. No, there's a certain chemistry that happens in your brain, and I've always thought it kind of like broke a little bit the vision that I had about things. But like some people are driven, some people are sad, some people are optimism, some people are like optimists, or some people are pessimists, some people are calm, some people are very agitated. Like there's a lot of things that can be going on with human behavior, and a lot of things, if not everything, can be explained with neuroscience, and it's just like chemistry in your brain. This is why you like that, this is why you feel this way when you were doing this. So I quickly understanding that I was not a smoker, and I didn't enjoy smoking, even though that's the lie that I was telling myself. Oh, smoking is a pleasure. I love smoking. Smoking, especially cigarettes, but even vape, it's the same shit. It's even worse. And we can talk about that as well. It's not the behavior that you like. It's the chemistry that it creates in your brain. I was loving that rush of dopamine that nicotine would give me. That's what I was addicted to. It's not fucking smoking. Smoking is terrible. Smoking takes everything away from you. it takes your money, it takes your time, it takes your health, it takes energy, it takes everything away from you for a little bit of happiness. It's interesting to see how a human can give up everything for this. Maybe because we're not really aware of it right away. We're not necessarily conscious about it. It becomes very subconscious, like, oh, I'm smoking, you know. But yeah, that was one of the things. I'm not gonna, like, this video is not for that, but that was one of the things. Identifying what's going on in your brain. Why, you know, and not identifying with the thing, oh, I'm a smoker, I need to smoke. No, you enjoy dopamine like any other human. And so that's, you know, a ground realization of like, oh, what are other ways to get dopamine into my brain that I love so much? Maybe there's better way, there's ways that are more healthier, that cost less. Yes, there's plenty of other things that you can do. And it was the first way of like understanding and get away from it. And really, I totally have an addictive behavior with a lot of things. I have, let's say, an addictive tendency. You know, we know that we're not all equal toward things. You know, some people with, you know, alcohol or nicotine or like other things you're gonna love more the thing. Some people are going to be less. You know, some people can smoke like 1 cigarette a day or something like that. Like, it's something that I was never able to do. And later on, I wasn't smoking anymore. I was vaping, and vaping is even more dangerous because now there's no limit in what you can vape, and like you can literally vape 24/7 and just crush your brain with dopamine, and it's insanely bad. And when I stopped for about 3 months, again, I did things by myself. I didn't really, you know, I just like did things by myself, and I stopped. But the amount and the time it was that I was like addicted was pretty stunning. Even though, I mean, about 10 years with ups and downs, and I wasn't like consuming all the time in my full 20s. There's like times where I wasn't at all. But when I stopped for 3 months, I was at the bottom of the bottom. I had absolutely no drive for anything. And when in this video, I'm like, I'll come to a point where I didn't know if I could be happy anymore. Without it, it's because, you know, you reach a point where your entire source of dopamine is this. So like you start wondering, how the fuck am I gonna be ever happy, you know, without that? I mean, that's how I felt. And then, so this is why it's you know, this is why it's very hard to stop. And then, you know, some people stop easily, some people don't. What's important to understand is that, and where it is very vicious, is that some people will never stop. You know, there's plenty of people who will choose dying. They will literally choose dying from it rather than stop or thinking about stopping. This is how like fucking terrible this thing is. It's really making a drastic decision of fuck this, like this is not me. I'm not a smoker or vapor or whatever. I just love what it does in my brain. Let's find alternative to this, because this is literally killing me. So what do I want? Do I want to die because of that, or do I want to change and, you know, have more time on this planet doing some other stuff and not some stupidity that the system is trying to fuck me up for, you know, if that makes sense. So that's it for that.
Started to talk about something. Wow.
So what I took was oxandrolone, it was end of 2019, for a few weeks, 3-4 weeks. This was definitely an interesting experience. So before getting into the details of that, I this really comes from a place of insecurity, from a place of being weak, from a place of thinking that I needed to look a certain way to fit my image, the image that I thought I built for myself, and I thought I needed to be accepted and fine into this world. It really comes from like being delusional, and not facing again the problem that I've had, that I needed to look a certain way to be fine, So this was highly related to the dysmorphia for sure, but also related to ego, to my ego that I wasn't controlling, and that I thought would solve the problem, and I thought it would be like, oh, if the world is seeing me stronger and with more muscle that I am actually, it will be better. It comes from a place of confusion, from a place of being confused with what I needed to be, but definitely weak ego, insecurity, all that combined. The reason why I don't regret it, there's two things. Number one, I've never took anything while I was competing, or when I was into doing any kind of like sport, real sport event competition and stuff like that, because it didn't come from a place where I wanted to cheat on something or to win something. It really came from a place of wanting to fit an image that I've had, like for trying to like feel good about myself. Not that it excuses it or whatever. It's not an excuse. It's just like some kind of explanation, I would say, more or less. But what I wanted to say was this. So that's the first thing, and the second thing is really, I don't regret it because it made me. It put me one step closer to understanding that there's nothing that would solve my problem rather than like in here. The problem was in here, was the mechanism that I created 20 years ago to protect myself from external judgment, because I didn't know better. And so there's not a fucking pill or anything that was going to make me feel good, because regardless of how I would fucking look, I would feel bad. And then with the person that I am, or maybe I thought I was, this affected me mentally a lot, because I was ashamed, a lot of shame, because I was like, no, Robin, like this is not you, like you can't do this. And with also the work that I was doing, like it really fucked me up mentally. There was a lot of disappointment, and just trying to fix a problem with the wrong thing, and at that moment it was a lot of confusion going on. But it was part of my journey, and this is why I was saying that I'm not regretting it. It's because it helped me understand that the problem was here and nothing could solve it. I just needed to work within myself. And I thought, what I was saying, I thought, a lot of shame. It is what it is, right? I fucked up, but yeah. And I thought, all these things, so this was the main things, all that, all that I thought for the longest time, my ego was like, I will die with this. I will die with these things, with this dark secret, with my shadows, with my demons, with my darkness. I thought that I was going to die with it, because I couldn't accept, because I couldn't I felt like I couldn't handle the judgment again of what other people could think about that. Very interesting. But anyway, so really what happened then, and then I'm talking about my friend, and this was a catalyst for a lot of things, but really the amount of mental work that I've done gave me the capacity of doing other things, and these are the things that we'll talk about in that project as well, and like how how reacting to things affect your feelings and your actions and actually your entire life, and how to do mind workout to develop the capacity to be aware of what's going on in your mind, to be aware of a certain thought, a certain feeling that arises, that is generated by the reaction of an external action that is not necessarily linked to you, but that's going to affect you, and be able to, basically be more at peace within yourself, with it, which is the ground of feeling good, being good, and having an interesting and good life. The reason why I wanted to make that video as well is because I received like a lot of messages, and like people were thinking that I was crazy, or maybe like at a very bad place mentally, which I appreciate, all the reach and stuff like that. I'm absolutely not crazy. What happened, there's two things, but like the main thing is that I came to a realization that I was holding myself, physically, mentally, verbally. I was holding so much inside. I was hiding myself, and this whole dysmorphia transferred as well with hiding how I would feel, what I would want to say, so much things that kind of everything bursted in the same time, where after that session I realized all that, and how much it actually doesn't matter, and how much I was beating myself, hiding myself, blocking myself, how much I was doing so much detrimental thing for me, for no reason, for no real reason, for a reason that I thought was valid, and then it got out, like it was suddenly not valid anymore. So it's some kind of like cheat code in the matrix that suddenly opened the door for like, why am I scared? What am I scared of? Other people? But it doesn't matter what other people think about all that, for different type of reason that I'm not gonna talk about more into this video. But like understanding that it does not matter, and it was all me. In this video where I'm like, at the end I'm like, well, I'll talk about the water, where I'm like, here,
Stop me from
spreading the thing. Nothing will fucking stop me from spreading the thing. What I'm saying is that Robin, will not stop myself anymore to do the things I want, to say the things I want, all that type of stuff. Nobody's gonna stop me. Like, look at that, like 180 pounds of pure muscle yelling in the dark. Who's gonna try to come stop me? I'm just kidding, but like, and it was so funny because also there was I was yelling, and there was a young girl, I don't know, probably like 16, 17 years old. She was a German exchange student that was just here. And when I turned, she was like looking at me and like, oh no, don't worry. That was so funny, and she did. She went in the water after, and we took some photos of her and stuff like that. It was funny, but anyway, so it's really, there's something bursted into my mind, and I came to a realization that I was holding myself for no reason, and that I needed to free myself. So plenty of things, and the yelling and all that stuff while out of nowhere, out of context, I can understand that. You know, a lot of people think, oh, Robin suddenly got crazy or into a cult or like whatever you may have thought about that. It's nothing more than, yeah, I just, you know, let go of everything that was holding me back and accepted who I was, accepted what I've done, acknowledged, I forgave myself, I understood why I did things, and today I'm in an insanely peaceful, meaningful, fulfilling state of mind that, and I'm very excited as well because I'm going to cultivate that thing with like all these different projects. But you know, if I was able to do this, it's because I've done a lot of inward work. I, you know, find ways to free myself from all these things, and I couldn't be happier because I could have like hold these things like for longer than that and or fucking dying with this. Today I feel so good that I have no word for it. This is why also I wanted to make that video, because I don't want to mislead everybody, you know, anybody in having this video where I'm just like crying all over the place, and that can be misleading. You know, because also I'm thinking about my friends and like, but it's really comes from a place of it's liberating myself. It's breaking my ego. It's breaking who I thought I needed to be. It's breaking an old image. It's breaking free from things by taking my inward into like throwing it out. It's not necessarily for you to listen to it. It's just like letting these things out is literally freeing myself, because now it's just not hidden in me. It's out there. And I'm not anymore carrying the burden because I've done the work to free myself and to accept, forgive, and free myself for all these things. So I just want to make sure, you know, like nobody thinks that I am depressed or anything. Like I went through all kind of state of mind today. I'm extremely happy. I have a crazy life. Like I'm running a business with things that I love to do in a different country, with a great partner. I have great friends, great family that is super supportive. Like I'm really not, you know, the one that you need to worry about. Yeah. So I just I just want to make sure that message is clear, you know, and you don't think that that I'm into a bad place, because it's not the case. What else? Yes, these projects. So at the end, I'm talking about like live events and stuff like that with the thing. This is more with the curious art of being human and stuff. So this is more going to be the end project, the end goal, because starting with that, it's going to be a challenge. I have like a bunch of people lined up, so that project will actually start as a podcast, or I filmed interviews and things like that, and it will start next month. So in March, yeah, so we'll start as a podcast with all kind of stuff. But basically, you know, it will share stories and talk about challenges that people have had, and that can be any kind of things. It's not necessarily going to be heavy things or just, you know, the things that I've had. Like it can be all type of stuff. It's just collecting human stories, like stories of the human experience and how people navigated through this, and what kind of tools helped these people to navigate, to overcome, to, you know, keep sanity, to keep the fulfillment, to keep, you know, some sort of peace within themselves, toward all types of different events or things that they encountered in their lives. It's really going to be a lot about like the human experience, about life things, and without blocks, with full transparency and things, because that's the goal of that thing. That's what I want to do. and very much solution oriented, resilient. Like in when I did Vernon Talks at the beginning, I'm writing. This project was about celebrating humans' resilience or resiliency. It's really because it's a subject that I find passionate and that I've thought and got into for so long, like fighting for something, like having an issue that like you keep faith that it's going to be better, that you can overcome it, and you keep showing up and you keep facing these things, and you never accept it. You keep that positive conflict that's going to get you out of things. So the curious art of being human before being what I want to do, which would be the end project of, having some live events and stuff like that. It's going to be a podcast, and it starts next month. And yeah, what else should I say? I think that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot for listening to this. I just felt like I needed to do that video because I don't want also people to worry. And I know there's a bunch of people that were worrying about me. Understand, and I get it. Like, this video can be a little alarming. Everything that I'm talking about, all the problems that I've had, settled, are processed, overcame, and put in the past since a while for most of it, and yeah, that's pretty much the reason also why I was able to do this. But anyway, enough talking about me. So the podcast, sorry, I have a bunch of stuff in my mouth. The podcast is coming. There's another project that is completely secret and I'm not gonna talk about until it's out, and it's gonna start in March as well. I'll do also other videos, probably by myself, but again, I'm not gonna talk about that for now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening to me. Stay strong. And what else? That's it. See you guys.